for Christmas. There is just one thing I need.
Hello, Intent to Injure, and welcome to the Week 10 podcast. Once again, Eric Zaleski and Brent Mansfield with you.
We're back.
We're kicking it off yet again with little Christmas music.
Little
Christmas
Mariah. You can't go wrong with She has some good Christmas tunes. She does.
Give the
crowd
a little more volume.
Top Christmas singers, I think. You gotta go with, I think, the king of Christmas, which is Nat King Cole. You just can't beat the guy. You gotta go with Andy Williams. A little bit of Burl Ives, but Mariah's up there. Mariah is up there with Christmas songs.
I'm a Mariah fan.
Yeah, she's a fan favorite. Nothing to say bad about her.
But, of course, here we come. We're coming to you live December the 13th in Pittsburgh. You wouldn't know it if you stepped outside.
I got my shorts going, short sleeves.
It is very warm, very humid here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And once again,
there he is. What's going on?
The Shaw Panthers owner, Mr. Foss, doing a flyby.
Have you set your lineups for the past 2 weeks? No, he says no.
He's right where we left him. While we're talking about the Christmas game, let's go ahead and get our little Christmas tree in there.
That's cute. It's cute.
It's about all you can say. It's almost so ugly that it's cute. There's not much to it, but we gave.
You say it's Charlie Brown status.
It kind of is, yeah. You can actually buy those.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
I almost just did that.
Really?
But we're giving it an honest effort here. But let's get into a little bit of hockey talk. We've got a lot, actually, that we need to get into. Let's start off with the new developments in Pittsburgh. Mikey Johnston out as head coach. Mikey Sullivan in. Your initial reactions to the move?
I don't know. I don't know if it was more of a media and fan pleaser move than it was an actual hockey move. I don't know. I just don't get it. I think a lot of the responsibility of the players isn't there anymore, and I think a lot of responsibility of the coach. I mean, when it comes down to it, the coach can only do so much. It's the players that play the game, and I think you got to start putting a little more responsibility on the people that actually play the game. That's my take on it.
So I agree with you there. I totally agree with you. Whether it was fair or unfair from Michael Johnston. It's easier, as they always say, to get rid of one coach than it is to get rid of 20 players.
Oh, yeah.
The team clearly needed a change. So I'm sitting at the game on Friday night.
Oh, you're at the game?
Pens-Kings.
It was a good game.
And it was, and the Pens were, the Pens outshot them, I think, 42-40.
Oh, yeah, Quick was awesome in that game.
Yeah, Malkin ties it late, goes to a shootout, Kings win. But in that third period, this is when they were trailing 2-1. I'm just kind of watching all this, and I turned to my girlfriend, Marissa, my lovely girlfriend, who I was at the game with.
Nice little date night.
It was. And I said, Marissa, do you know how when it gets cold outside, old people kind of claim they can feel it in their joints?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if they broke something, they claim they can feel it a little bit.
Yeah,
the weather starts turning.
Yeah. Or like when it's like raining, people can say, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one.
Yeah.
And so I use that analogy because I'm sitting there and I'm saying, Marissa, I said, a coaching change is going to happen, like,
you
any day now. I could just feel it. Something was speaking. I could feel it. And again, Pens weren't playing a particularly bad game. They were spirited. They were,
Yeah, I mean, they came back within the last minute.
But it was just kind of one of those, you win, you take a step forward, 2 steps back. There was not a lot of progression going on. And it was just like, how much longer can you go with doing the same thing and not progressing throughout the course of the year? It just seemed like they were kind of stuck on a treadmill with Mike Johnston. They never were able to really take it to the next level.
Inconsistent.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of that falls on the players. Now, a lot of people don't like Mike Johnston because he shows like almost no emotion on the bench.
Zero.
I can understand that. If, as a player, you want somebody that's going to be fired up a little bit.
It kind of reminds you of like an old guy like at a sporting event.
Right.
Doesn't show much emotion. Just like if they score,
stands up.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't clap. Just
just stands up, looks around.
Yeah.
I think a change, kind of a fresh, maybe a change of pace a little bit for the Pens will do good for them. But ultimately, they're bringing in Mike Sullivan. By all accounts, almost the opposite personality of Mike Johnston. Seems like a guy
more fiery.
More fiery. He's going to be, hold the players accountable, be in their face, but at the same time, seems like he has a pretty good personality.
Yeah.
So maybe he can level with the players, have a little fun with them, which is, I felt that there was always that disconnect between the players and Mike Johnston. Again, we're not in the locker room. We don't know exactly what goes on.
Yeah.
But from the outside looking in, that seemed to be the case.
He didn't have much personal relationships with the players.
Right, yeah. It
Yeah.
seemed that way.
Yeah.
So, all in all, I'm very pleased with the change. It's now more so on the players than it is on Mike Sullivan coming in to get this ship right. Because, how many more coaching changes can you do? How many more trades can you make? How many new faces can you bring in?
Before
and the window's closing. The window's closing for the team.
Players aren't getting any younger.
I know you accuse me sometimes of being a homer. I accuse you. But the fact of the matter is, I pride myself on being a realist. And right now, for the Pittsburgh Penguins, time's running out. And at some point, and I was saying this yesterday, you can move all the coaches you want, you can change the GM, you can bring in new faces, but for me, at this point, it falls on one guy and one guy only, and that's Sidney Crosby. At some point, as the captain of the team, it's got to fall on his shoulders. Malkin's carried his fair share, as well as Fleury, to the start of this season.
Oh, yeah,
But at some point, and this has kind of been an ongoing theme for the last few years, here's another little thing, and I'm getting, I guess I'm not really getting sidetracked, because this is about Crosby. This is like a little detail that I noticed.
Well, you know my opinion on Crosby.
Exactly, and I'm almost agreeing with you a little bit here, because I saw something the other night in that shootout against the Kings that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I think it has a lot to do with what's been going on with the Penguins. So Crosby comes down. Were you watching it?
I didn't see the shootout, no.
Okay. Crosby comes down. Shootout's tied at 1-1, I believe. He comes down.
Well, I did see the Penguins had a 1-0 lead in the shootout. First shooter scored. Yeah, right.
So 1-1. Kopitar scores for the Kings. Perron scores first for the Pens. Here comes Crosby. He comes down real nonchalantly, no speed, and just takes a shot basically right in the middle of quick. Like, I don't know if he's trying to go 5-hole. It just looked very uninspiring.
Yeah.
If I'm Crosby in that situation, and I really want to win, if I miss that shot, I'm pissed. Like, that bothers me.
Right.
I might even take a little stick off the boards.
Yeah.
I'm just pissed.
Show a little emotion.
Crosby, he goes, finds the puck, looks for the ref, and skates it over to the ref and hands him the puck. And it was kind of like,
polite,
Yeah, but it was kind of like, it was like, here, give them the puck. Let's get this done.
Yeah, I
got something to do.
Yeah, I know. Right?
It didn't faze him at all. The shootout attempt was very uninspiring, and then the way he acted afterwards, I don't care. Here, go down. It's just there's been a lot of that with Crosby. It's like you haven't seen a lot of emotion out of him. And when he's struggling, you almost if you're not going to produce for me, give me a little emotion. Show me that you care.
Well, here's the thing about Crosby in his past. If he wasn't producing, he always would always show a little, frustration.
Right.
But honestly, though, look at his history. He's never really been a great shootout guy. He really hasn't.
No,
he's been okay, but he hasn't had these, outstanding shootout numbers.
Right. If memory serves me correctly, he actually started off his career not good at all. He went through a 3 or 4 year span where he really picked it up, and then there's been a drop off since. So if you look at his numbers, they're probably right middle of the pack. Nothing great.
We talk about Crosby, producing on the ice, but I just have this feeling that he has a lot to do with the coach, with the front office decisions. I think he had a lot to do with his coaching decision. I do. I think with him being the captain, just his being Sidney Crosby, and I think he kind of runs that organization. Honestly, I really do.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if he certainly has a say in what's going on.
I think
he's a guy that's going to be there his whole career. He's the center of the franchise. He's the guy that sells tickets.
Yeah,
and whether you think it's fair or not fair that that's the case, that's one thing. But at least produce for me on the ice. If you're
I know
that. You got to give me something. So
yeah.
But ultimately, just to kind of wrap this all up, the biggest fireable offense of Mikey Johnston's career. I don't know if you caught this. Was sending Nicholas Bonino out fourth in the shootout before players like Phil Kessel, Oli Mata, Chris Kunitz. I would imagine Daniel Sprong could be good in a situation
I don't
like that.
think he was a big Daniel Sprong fan.
He wasn't. He wasn't. That was well documented. Nonetheless, if you can name about anybody on that roster outside of Rob Scuderi that should go before Nick Bonino. Bonino, and we talked about him. We talked about him on the last podcast.
Yeah.
And he hasn't done a damn thing since. That guy's allergic to offense. He doesn't have a lick of offensive ability. People said he did coming in. I haven't seen it. If he does, I have not seen it.
I mean, he was your typical third line center who could probably pop in 10 to 15 goals.
Yeah, let me tell
but
you,
I don't
he's
think
not
he's
on
got.
pace for
I
that.
think he's. What does he have 1 or 2 this year? I think.
I'd be stunned if he had 2.
I think he has 2. He has 1. He doesn't have more than 2.
And I'll tell you, whenever he got his last goal, it was like 20 games ago because it's been a long time since Nick Bonino's done anything.
That trade's not looking that well. The Sutter for Bonino trade.
The only nice thing about that trade was that they were able to free up some cap space to get Eric Fair.
That's true.
Which was nice. And they didn't they bring over that Adam Clendenning in the deal?
Oh, Clendenning, yeah.
And now it's starting to sound like he may get some playing time over Scuderi. I actually thought he's played okay.
Well, they've been playing out Warsawski, too.
Another point there to talk about. At first, I saw this guy in warm-ups a couple weeks ago, and I thought some fan won like a raffle. I'm like, who is this guy out on the ice? So, I watch Penn's games here and there. I don't get to see them all the time. I've been watching more of late, but I missed, I think, his first couple games. And I always use, and this is a good tip for you guys out there that are playing fantasy hockey, daily face-off. There's also left-wing lock, but both of them...
I do the daily face-off for the goaltenders.
Right. So they have great starting goalies, like up to date, like as soon as it's on the site.
There's always a couple Twitter accounts that are pretty good with that.
Right.
It's like my sports book or something like that, and they always tweet out the starting, goaltenders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You follow them.
No, that sounds like a gambling.
What?
Is it a gambling?
No, it's just it gives you updates and everything.
But anyway, on Daily Faceoff, you can also, and I don't know if you've done this, you can check out the line combinations.
Yeah.
So I do this, right? And I check out the Pens because I was actually went on to look at Oli Mata, who I recently picked up in this league, because I'm thinking, okay, Letang's out, so Mata's going to be running the power play. No. It's this Warsawski guy. And I was like, what's going on? So he's on the first defensive pairing. He's running our power play, the only defenseman on the power play. Letang comes back. Warsawski's still running the power play. And I'm like, who the heck is this guy? So I go down to the game the other night, I'm watching it, and I'm like, you know what? He's actually pretty good.
He's not bad. No, he hasn't been bad.
Like he is distributing the puck better, and he's not afraid to shoot on the power play, which has been a big criticism of Letang this season.
Letang hasn't done anything well. Did you? I was looking through the paper this morning. I saw the stats.
Newspaper?
Yeah. I like to read. It was yesterday morning.
That's a Brent move right there.
What? I like to eat breakfast.
2015.
What?
You have a computer or like a smartphone?
No, I like to support the newspapers.
Okay.
I like newspapers. I was looking down, their stats, and Letang's like a minus 15.
He's not been good.
I was surprised by that number.
And then his offensive stats are down as well.
1 goal and 14 assists, I think.
Yeah, and it's not what we've come to expect here out of Chris Letang. But he was very interested to see Warsawski getting the nod left and right.
Hey, if he's playing well, then why not?
Again, I was pleasantly surprised. I thought Johnston at one point was trying to get himself fired with that move. And you wonder if he was. You look back at some of the moves. Again.
You know what? I know he wasn't trying to get himself fired, though, but that has to be a frustrating team to coach. It has to be a frustrating team to coach.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're responsible for all the offensive power that's on the team, and then you're getting results like that, it just has to be so frustrating. And I'm sure Crosby is a frustrating player to coach.
I'm sure.
I'm sure he is.
But ultimately, was his system conducive to scoring goals? I mean, that's been the big question.
Yeah.
So, because Bowser had no issues.
We'll see.
Yeah, because it's obviously going to change here with the new coach. But we'll wrap up the Pens talk there. Just had a lot to touch on out of the gates. Jumping things over now to the Intent to Injure League. Very active week.
It has been. It's picked up. It was a very slow start, but the past week or two, it's been fun to see.
And I am, of course, I've become kind of the centerpiece of the majority of this. I've been very, very active in trade talks, as I promised I would be, and I always have been. First off, you and I, again, we cannot come to terms on a deal. We've gone back and forth more times than I can.
We probably have about a couple hundred text messages just about trade talks.
Oh, yeah, and it's really unbelievable. And I mean, I like your perspective out of all this because how many times did I tell you I'm in trade talks with other teams? Here's my offer to you. If you don't want to do this deal, that's fine. But this guy's going today, and then 15 minutes later, the email comes through and he's been traded.
Oh, I know. I try. When you say stuff like that, I don't think you're lying. But
because I think that's a tactic a lot of people do. Like, hey, I'm in other conversations. But I say that, I mean that because I text everybody all the time, whether they want to receive the text or not.
Yeah.
Here's the trade.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bluff kind of move. Hey, I'm about to trade this guy.
Yeah, but not with me.
No, it's not. No, I know. I always when you do text that, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm going to call his bluff, but I can't do it because you're telling the truth.
Yeah, I mean, and again, a lot of people would say that it's crazy to be in first place now, and we'll get into the standings. Talk's book service with a 3-game lead on the league.
Yeah, well, that does.
To be that active,
You just like to trade.
But I told Sam Mendelson this as we were in some trade talks. We couldn't work out a deal. I'm a trade addict. I'm just an addict. I love the action. I love switching things up.
It is fun. Whether
I be 9-0 or 0-9, I'd be actively pursuing trades. And that's not to say that I made 2 deals this past week. There may be another one coming next week. Just because I think you can always get better, and I think that teams can have strengths, and the guy that you're looking to trade with may have a weakness in which you have the strength, but they also might have a strength in which you have a weakness. So you can make trades which strengthen both teams ultimately. And we'll get into we'll go ahead right now and get into some of the deals and kind of show you what I mean by that.
I'm just so hesitant. I'm still just so hesitant with making trades now. I do like making trades. I mean, I'm a guy, but I'm just a guy that just won't do a trade to make a trade anymore. And I'm still that just killed me last year. Stupid trades, and I'm more hesitant now. And don't get me wrong. If I really thought of a deal, came up with a deal that I thought would work, I definitely would do it. I'm not going to trade for the heck of not trading, but I'm just not going to trade for the heck of trading.
You're waiting for the right deal.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah,
and that's
and I'm not in a position where I have to make a trade or cause,
right. You're sitting in second place, I believe, as of now, and having another nice week. So certainly you're in no
desperation mode.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
But let's get into the trades. The first one made this week, and we can kind of walk everybody through how it happened. I was actually in the middle of trade talks with you, and I was dangling Michael Camilleri, the left wing, out of New Jersey, and what a start he's had.
I know, wow.
At the time, and I haven't checked since, he was top 5 in NHL scoring.
He's having a year.
33 years old, so you wonder if he can keep it up. But I had quite a few left wings in my lineup. I personally thought, and I don't think this is, I think everybody in the league would agree, that there's no way he's going to be able to keep this pace up. He's a nice player. He's going to have plenty of opportunity, and that's not to say that he can't end the year with an 80-point season.
No, that's not bad though. 80 points a year. That's almost a point per game.
You're going to be in the top 10, top 15 with that.
Yeah.
I mean, man, geez, the way the NHL is going, you're going to be top 5.
Yeah.
But so as we're talking about this, I get a text from the owner of Madonna Auto Goal 95, Johnny Zaleski, and he said, "I'm looking for a left wing." And then said Steven Stamkos is on the trade block for the right deal. And I said, I have a guy that you might be interested in. How about the left wing that's number 5 in the NHL in scoring? And he said, who may that be? So I sent over the little screenshot of the top 5 NHL
as you
scorers.
As you did with me.
I like to use some graphics, to kind of spice up the conversation.
yeah.
And so I expected John to come back and say, okay, I'm interested, let's work out a deal for him, whatever. John texted me back, but it was about a different subject. It was about, some NFL rig coming up there. So I was like, okay, what happened to our trade talks? And I thought that was, I thought maybe you'd be interested in Camilleri. I checked my email a few minutes later, and there's a trade offer sitting in there, Stamkos for Camilleri straight up, which I was stunned about.
Yeah, when I saw it, I was stunned too.
I thought Stamkos was on the block, but I thought it might take a little bit more to get him. Now, if stats play a factor in it this year, here's Camilleri and here's Stamkos. Stamkos has been struggling, and he's currently, even after I acquired him, still in the biggest goal drought of his career, which I believe is 8 games.
Wow. I know the whole Tampa Bay team's hurt for offense.
Right, yeah. I picked up quite a few of them, thinking that they're going to turn around.
I saw you picked up Johnson, too.
Tyler Johnson and Andre Palat.
Yeah. I had him last year, Palat. He's a nice little player.
Yeah, I know.
But he's been hurt,
I
too.
really like him. Yeah, it's a matter of those guys getting healthy, getting rolling. But so we made that deal. I couldn't have hit accept any faster. I was thrilled to get an elite.
Well, I remember me texting you after I saw that. I'm like, how do you brainwash these people?
But that was literally
it's amazing though, because I've sent John a couple trade offers, and John, you can vouch. They were fair offers. They wasn't on my insane trade offers, which I thought they were good trades. Goaltenders were involved. I asked for Halak, and I forgot what to give him in return, but I thought it was a really fair deal, and he declined me, and he didn't send anything back. Another trade or anything, and I was surprised by that. And then I see he does this. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me.
Again, and a lot of people do put. I mean, the way that I like to trade is I like to sell high, buy low, and I don't think that's a tactic that anybody's not familiar with. But I like to sell guys that are on the upswing and then go after some guys that are maybe elite talents but have been underperforming. And a lot of people, especially guys who are towards the bottom of the standings, they need points now.
Yeah.
And they don't have time to wait around for these guys to figure it out.
Right.
Whereas, while I'm sitting at the top of the standings, okay, Stamkos, take a few weeks to figure this out.
You can take a couple risks.
Right. So I can understand the move, and especially John, who has a little bit of depth at center, was able to move Stamkos and bring in an elite left wing. We'll see if Camilleri keeps it up. He's been a little quiet over the past couple games since I've moved him. Had a couple really nice scoring chances the other night I saw on NHL Network. I forget who they were playing. This goalie made like three consecutive saves within about 5 seconds.
Really, on Camilleri.
Yeah.
He's always been like a decent player his whole career.
Yeah, but he's blowing up. Yeah, to ask who he's playing with, I think maybe...
Is it Zajac?
Maybe Zajac. He was hurt for a little bit. I've seen that...
Henrik?
I've seen that Lee Stepniak and...
he's having a good year, too.
And Kyle Palmieri. All those guys...
That Palmieri has like 14 goals this year.
Yeah, so I'm thinking they must be playing together or something, because that New Jersey Devils team has been a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I know.
Around the NHL. I don't think
they're not a team I really want to play.
No, absolutely not. So jumping into the second trade of the week, and this trade was between me and Mr. Bergman, the Drunken Pucks. We made a deal, and you thought that Griffin got the better end of this deal. I moved
that one.
Patrice Bergeron, who's been red hot, center for the Boston Bruins, along with the goalie tandem in Detroit.
You traded both, huh?
Jimmy Howard and Peter Mrazek, all in return for Corey Crawford, the starting goalie for the Chicago Blackhawks. This is a classic example of me having a strength at center. After the Stamkos trade, I had too many centers. So I was sitting there, and my centers are not bad. John Tavares, Evgeny Malkin, Steven Stamkos, Patrice Bergeron, and Tyler Johnson. So I'm sitting there with 5 centers, and I'm like, now's the time to sell. I don't want to move any of those top 3, but one of those bottom 2, and Johnson I'm not going to get a lot in return for. He's been hurt. So I said, let's move Bergeron. And I wanted to move the two Detroit goalies only because I like having a roster spot where I can kind of freewheel with free agents a little bit.
Yeah.
And I just wanted a little more stability in net, so go out and get Corey Crawford. It is what it is.
I was just surprised. I mean, the Howard Mrazek tandem, they've been decent. They have been. But when I clicked on and I saw Bergeron's stats, I was like, wow. I was like, he's having a really good year.
He kept it going the other day. He had a couple assists the other day. He's a nice player. Player.
And then I saw Crawford. He's not having a great year, though.
Well, he's actually having a fine year. In his first start with me, how about a little shutout for 10.5 fantasy points? I believe.
Of course, you would get that.
When I traded for him, his position rank was 8th in goaltending. So pretty solid. I mean, that's a true number 1 right there. And then I'm going to match him with Pekka Rinne. So happy to have those two down there. So that was the basis of the trade. Griffin, I mean, it was a good deal for him to make.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah.
And for me, I like having a couple of those extra roster spots. There were some guys on waivers I liked, so I was okay with moving a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so I like where my team's sitting at right now. Then there was a third trade made
a couple days ago
between Griffin Bergman and Jake Boss, and I'm just going to pull it up here. And I think Jake Boss, will be flat out honest, I think Jake Boss got the better end of this deal. The Drunken Pucks, Griffin Bergman trading James Neal and Brent Seabrook to Jake Boss for Drew Doughty and Oscar Lindberg. not a lot of people knowing the fourth guy in this deal. He's the center for the New York Rangers.
Not having a bad year.
17 points through 31 games.
He's a rookie.
He's a
rookie.
Only averaging 2.1 fantasy points per game, which isn't particularly high. But the big name in this for me is James Neal, who has 12 goals, 8 assists in 30 games, averaging nearly 3 fantasy points per game. He's a left winger too, which a lot of people are
it's not easy to come by left winger.
So to get a left winger who's going to be scoring goals, huge. Brent Seabrook, who actually traded to Griffin earlier in the year, he's having a great season. 5 goals, 15 assists, and is a +1 through 30 games.
I think you offered him to me in one of our trade
I
talks.
offered everybody the tandem of Brent Seabrook and Jonathan Toews.
Really? Yeah, you did offer me that.
I offered everybody that, and Griffin took it for Evgeny Malkin. And then Drew Doughty gets traded. Doughty having a very nice year, though. I didn't realize he was this good. 4 goals, 13 assists, +12. You gotta like that.
That's it. He has a lot of shots on goal too.
72 shots
for a defenseman.
So all in all, I mean, Griffin obviously is looking at the name here, Drew Doughty, and he's happy to get him, and he's a nice player. Not crazy about this Oscar Lindbergh. I actually think he might pick up better guys off the waiver wire. And then Jake, it's a couple solid players, and Neal and
I tell you what, I picked up somebody that was a good left winger off, and I couldn't believe he was on the waiver wires. Thomas Tatar from Detroit.
Yes, and he's been very, very good to start this season. So, real quickly here, we're going to go over last week's matchups, not in depth, just kind of recite some scores.
Oh, I don't want to. I'm so frustrated.
And I know you have something to say about your matchup. But we'll go over these, and then since it's Sunday night, and so we're going to review Week 9, and since we're almost all the way through Week 10,
most of the matchups,
we'll spend a little bit more time on those.
Yeah.
So the first game last week, Talkett's Book Service winning their 9th consecutive game to start the year, 162 to 132. And if you look down here, ironically enough, the leading scorer of Talkett's Book Service that week, Michael Camilleri, with 26.8 points. And for those counting at home, he was the only guy in fantasy to get over 22 points in the week.
He left your team on good terms.
He did. I mean, he was the best fantasy player in hockey that week. So, what can you say? Good run.
He had a good ball.
Michael Camilleri.
Good week for you there. Wow.
So Talkett's Book Service up to 9-0, and the inglorious Backus, without David Backus in his lineup, that he's sitting out on the waiver wire.
I see that.
Down to 5-4. We're jumping over to the King of Quarter Zips versus the champ, and the King of Quarter Zips are victorious in this one, 115 to 97. King of Quarter Zips up to 5-4. The champ down to 4-5. One note about Mr. Mendelson, I'm surprised. We've been in a little bit of trade talks together. I'm surprised that he's not willing to pull the trigger on. I mean, I guess it's a particular player, but all in all, I'm surprised he hasn't been very interested in making a move at this point. He wants to kind of hold pat here for a couple weeks and see where he goes.
Well, I mean, are these records from last week, or are these the updated records?
Those are updated.
Okay, well, I guess that was the last lineup. 4-5. You know what? You gotta. How long can you stand pat when you're 4-5?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a tight league. I get it. If you win a couple, all of a sudden you're in the playoffs, but
you don't want to get too far behind, though.
You don't. And I did want to touch real quickly on this player who led Sam's team in scoring. Gostis Beer.
That's that defenseman from Philly.
Yeah, he's like changed the whole team around.
He's had like how many game-winning goals since he's had. I know it was within a span of a couple games where he scored in overtime, twice.
Yeah, I mean he's been absolutely awesome. He's the quarterback of that power play now. He's got everybody rolling, and you should know this because you've Claude Giroux in your lineup.
I'll tell you what.
And Giroux has been benefiting.
Oh, Claude Giroux's been great.
Yes.
He had the highlight reel goal versus the Blues the other night. That was sick.
An interesting player there, and a nice pickup by Sam Mendelson.
Good.
Good heads-up pickup there, and I think he made that move because he had Mark Streit. Mark Streit went down with an injury, and he must have just went and searched who's the next man up, and it was him. So Mr. Mendelson, we'll give him a little nod for doing his research.
Don't give him too much props, but we'll give him some there.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
We'll go down to the lowest scoring game of the week
disgusting.
by far.
Oh.
It's a shame a team even wins this. The Drunken Pucks victorious over Yager's Peanut Butter, 61-40.
Oh, that's off.
I hope Robbie Wright didn't set his lineup.
I know.
45 points over a 7-day span.
His leading score was Barkov with a 9 point. No, that was Hoffman. Hoffman almost had single handedly half as many points as his whole team did.
Yeah. I mean, he obviously just wasn't setting us up. I'm not going to go through it all, but not very good.
That's like a classic like Devils like Coyotes game.
Yeah, it is. Take the under.
Yeah.
But Robbie, I know Robbie's still very in tune with his fantasy football, so I'm sure he's not giving the fantasy hockey a lot of attention, which has been my strength this year because I've been so bad at fantasy football. I've put all my attention into fantasy hockey, as you guys can tell by the way I'm talking, and all the trades I've been making. I've completely shifted over to fantasy hockey.
It's hockey season.
We'll jump down to the bottom, then we'll get to your matchup because I know
right.
you have something to say. The fourth matchup out of 5 for week number 9 was Blake Wheeler versus the Shawha Panthers and Jake Boss with a big win here. No surprise, another loss for Colin Fawcett and the Shawha Panthers, who are now down to 0-9.
Oh boy!
So if you're keeping tabs, the Zaleski-Fawcett household on the year 9-9.
That's a shame because you're 9-0. Still 500. Honestly, though, 94.4 points without setting his lineup.
That's impressive. I want to say he did set it a couple days because I told him, like, we were sitting down here and I asked him, I was like, are you just not going to try in fantasy hockey this year? And he's like, I'm basically done. But I think he pulled up the app and set it for a few days.
Really?
Gave it an honest effort.
I think if he gave it, honestly, I just want to look at his team real quick. I honestly just want to look at his team. How do you use this thing?
You're going to click into the full box score.
Oh, there it is.
So we'll see who was getting starts here and who wasn't.
He doesn't have a bad team.
Well, you have Sidney Crosby, who's gotten going a little bit, and Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, it looks like everybody got a start that, right?
It looks like it. I mean,
yeah. So I think he did set a little. Actually, no, because you look at the size of Jake's roster down. So maybe not.
Yeah. But he has Gallagher still playing. He's on IR.
Yeah.
So obviously, yeah.
Which is a shame, and I know that a lot of people have said this out there, that Fawcett's not really into it because he has Crosby and Fleury on his bench, and everybody would like those two guys.
Yeah, I know. Those are some nice people to have.
I'd love to trade for them.
But they're not being used.
Yeah, at this point, I think Mr. Fawcett's
like
out.
I said, I brought it up the last podcast. Ask for a couple dollars. Ask for a couple bucks.
Do it under the table. Don't let the commissioner know that. But
he's gonna wash his hands of all the.
I know, which kind of like I don't know, but yeah, I mean, if I'm him, try to figure it out. Do something.
I know.
Just don't sit there and go 0-23 this year.
You paid the money. You might as well give it an effort.
I agree with that. And jumping over to the final matchup of Week 9, I didn't realize that it ended this way.
Well, it ended that way.
Madonna auto goal 95, Johnny Zaleski 129, Manny Sanguian 35, Brent Mansfield 128.4.
Oh, that's so.
For those of you doing the math at home, John Zaleski wins by 0.6 over Brent Mansfield. Brent, your thoughts?
My thoughts. It was like I forgot to set my lineup last Friday. Went to work, was home for like 5 minutes. Had to go do some Christmas shopping, and between that period of me being home and I had got something to eat, changed, and went out. I said to myself, I got to set my lineup before I go. Little do you know, I'm driving out, and crap, I forgot to set my lineup. It's after 7 o'clock already. Game started, and the funny thing was, I was like, oh, it's not a big deal, because John had a huge lead on me. I think it was like a 30-point lead he had on me. And each day I just kept like nabbing at it. And then it was Saturday night. I think he still had a 30-point lead on me, but I had a huge Saturday night. Like I had a 45-point Saturday night. I rallied. I was within 16 Sunday night. I think I made a couple moves, and I had another big night. And I was like, I wonder if I won. So I wake up the next morning, look, and I see I lose by 0.6 points, and that was just like a slap in my face. It was just like I wish I would have lost by 30 points.
Right. There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse.
Losing up, and I would have, and if I would have set my lineup Friday night, I had a good feeling I probably would have won because there was 15 points I left off the board because of that.
And that's
there was a goalie win. I think Quick had a win.
If everybody set their lineup because you hear stories like this. I know Jake Boss claims that he has already had 2 games this season where if he would have set his lineup on the one night that he forgot, he would have won.
He would have won.
So we maybe a whole different story. Have every? That's why I always.
You just got.
This is why I set my lineup months. I literally I'm good for the next month. My lineup is just set. I just sit down one day, I set it, and in that way, if I don't get a chance to look at it that day, it's not a big deal. All my guys
are already
in.
Set. Yeah,
and maybe I have an injured player in there, or maybe something happens along the way. But at least the majority of my lineup's in there. That way, something like this doesn't happen.
That's a safe way to do it. And I got to start doing it that way because that just sucks. But you got to give it to John. His team had a decent week. 129 on the board. You got to give props when props are due, and
Yes.
But
well, I mean, yeah, so what's funny about that matchup is I must have seen that John had a huge lead on you, so I didn't check back because I just assumed that's what it was.
That's what I was thinking Friday
When I
night.
saw the standings, I wasn't surprised, but now that I see this, I didn't realize you made it this close.
Yeah.
So, very interesting.
It was so frustrating.
So last thing on week number 9.
The good thing about it was, not good thing, I still remain in second place,
yes.
But I did lose a game on you, though, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I needed to keep pace with you, but...
I mean, I appreciate it. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say we had a pretty big discrepancy in the week high and the week low. Had Robbie Wright and I have played each other the final,
that would have been a mess. That would have been sad.
To 45, 162 to 45.
You'd probably have to go back in the history books for that one.
Yeah, that
might be sad.
That's one of the bigger discrepancies I've seen in any fantasy sport.
That's sad.
So we're jumping over to week number 10 now.
We'll get more in depth with these matchups.
Yeah, we'll get a little bit more in depth. And I feel we're not going to start off with mine. I always start off with mine because it's the first one up. Let's start at the bottom.
Let's do it.
We'll start off with you.
All right.
Manny Sanguian, 35. Now, this is a new name for you once again. Any words from Manny out there?
Manny Sanguian, big part of the World Series in the 70s with the Pirates. Love the guy. He's always still sneaking around the Pirates organization. Got his little barbecue set up in center field.
He does, yes.
Yeah, Manny's barbecue, and he's still there. I haven't had it in a while, but the last time I had it was probably been a couple seasons, but it's good. He's always mostly sitting there, he'll sign some autographs. Nice guy.
Yeah, very nice guy. My dad actually met him, sat down, had dinner with him.
Oh, really?
My dad was thrilled. One of his favorite players.
Oh, yeah.
My dad gets emotional talking about it, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's a big Sanguian fan.
This was only about 6 months ago.
Oh, it's really recently, yeah.
And Manny's starting to lose it a little bit.
Yeah,
but I mean,
he's older.
He's an all-time great.
He is.
So you were going up against Jake Boss this week, Blake Wheeler, who has been active. He made that trade. In the current score here, we have 3 NHL games today, I believe.
Yeah.
So the majority of these games are final, unless the ones that are...
Well, I looked at Jake's team today. He has like 3-4 guys going. I have a player and a goalie going. But it's not like... I have a 22-point lead. All of his players would have to have at least a good night.
And as I look over all these matchups, they're all decided.
Set. Yeah.
So we're going to talk like they are, and if we're wrong, then so be it. But it looks like you're going to get the win this week. You're up 136 to 114. See your top scorer. We have already touched on a little bit.
Claude Giroux. He's been great. And he was on a lot of trade talks because he was off to a bad start, and luckily I held on to him because it seems like the Flyers are turning around a bit, and Drew's obviously turning it around a bit.
It's funny because this seems to be a common theme, kind of these elite top-end players getting off to slow starts.
And then
But they're all so good, it's only a matter of time before they figure it out.
They're not good players where one game can change the whole rest of the season.
Exactly.
They can just turn it on one game.
Yeah, they can turn it on in one shift.
Yeah.
You see it all the time.
And they're on for the rest of the season.
Right. So, looking like you're going to improve here to 7-3. Which will keep you in the second overall spot. And Jake Boss going to drop down to 4-6. Jake, if you need to make some more deals, I'm all ears. I actually had some trade talks with Jake this week.
Not easy.
No, we touched on this, and I actually swore last podcast that I wouldn't do it, but I saw one guy in his lineup that I really wanted, and I said, "Damn it, I'm just going to go for it." It was brief. He wasn't obnoxious. He just said, "I'm not very interested." Because I was shopping around.
Can you say who that player was?
Who I was going after?
Yeah.
No.
Why?
I'd like to kind of keep it in house. Who we were going after? I will say, the reason a deal wasn't very much discussed was that the Detroit goalies were part of the deal.
Oh, okay.
And Jay couldn't.
Was it the King?
It was
the King.
Yeah.
Well, he was a lot of trade talks for me too.
Right. Yeah. You had mentioned that, so I figured I'd reach out. Jake couldn't comprehend the fact that
We have a last second play here, if we don't mind. 10-3, 2 seconds.
spoiler alert, they don't get it. This game ended 4 hours ago.
Oh, really? Wait, shit. What game is this?
Kansas City won.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
much I pay attention to NFL football right
we
there.
have the red zone up to our right. We are coming to you.
I'm thinking, oh my god, last second play, and that's it.
But ultimately, Jake couldn't understand that, like. So I told him, I was like, I give you both of these goalies, okay?
Yeah.
And they split starts, so you're gonna want both of them. And I was like, then you get all the starts for the Detroit goalies, and Detroit has a good team, so they win some games.
Yeah.
Okay. Jake was like, well, I could just pick up Ronta, the backup for the Rangers, and then I would have all the Rangers goalie starts. But what, like, and then, so I just dropped it because it wasn't worth getting into it. What he couldn't comprehend was that Lundqvist gets 90% of the starts there, so holding Ronta for the 10% of games he's going to start is wasting a spot.
Exactly.
Whereas you can't really have one of these guys without the other, because then you're only getting a start every other game.
Right,
And you don't want that. So there was value in owning both of them if you're going to own one of them. He couldn't comprehend that, so the trade talks quickly stopped because I didn't have much more to offer. That was going to be my replacement for taking Lundqvist. And also it would have been a deal much like the one I did with Griffin, where Bergeron was on the table. I've offered up at points. You pick one of my defensemen who are, as a defensive unit, leading this fantasy league in points by far. And we're gonna get into it a little bit here.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, my defensive, I'm so loaded right now that I almost don't even want to touch it because the way these guys are producing is unbelievable. But Jake couldn't, they're just, as it's almost, I've come to expect.
It's frustrating almost to a point.
But and it is what it is. Jake's going to drop down to 4-6. You're going to improve to 7-3. Jumping on to the.
Let me say one more thing about my team. I think the pickup of the past couple weeks for me has been Anders Nilsson, the goaltender, for none other than the Edmonton Oilers.
And they've been winning some hockey games.
He has like 5-6 straight wins.
Was he part of the 7-5 madhouse the other night against the Rangers?
He was, yes. But he still got the win though, and that was like his 5th straight win. Oilers have been picking it up. Their offense has been good. Their defense is a little better than it's been in the past, and it looked like they got a somewhat competent goalie in Nielsen. So maybe this team's turning it around a bit. And
I'm going to parlay this conversation and do a little more Oilers talk, and we're going to jump up to my matchup now, only because my opponent has the guy I wanted to talk about, and he was the week high for King of Quarter Zips, Taylor Hall. So I'm watching this game the other night, Rangers-Edmonton. We just referenced it, 7-5 Edmonton. Every single goal scored by Edmonton, the Hall's right in the middle of everything. He's scoring it, he's setting it up. He was on the ice. He may have been on the ice for all 7 goals.
Well, he scored that goal like 23 seconds after the Rangers tied it up.
Yeah, I mean,
came back.
This guy's unbelievable.
He's a hell of a player, and that stinks because that's who I got in the trade last year. He was having a great year when I traded him. When you traded him to me, and he got hurt, and Ovechkin went on to have 48 goals last year.
It was a nice season. It might have been 53, but I don't know.
Okay, it probably was.
But he's been awesome, and nice to see the Oilers winning some games.
It's good to see. I mean, how many first-round draft picks do you have?
Right, and they're doing it without McDavid too. Which
I know. That's a shame too. That's just the Oilers' luck right there.
Speaking of guys sitting and wasting away on the Shaw Panther.
Is McDavid on there
too? Actually, no, never mind.
Eichel. He has Eichel.
He is Eichel. Johnny has McDavid. Fawcett wanted to draft McDavid. It's all he talked about the whole draft, and then Johnny right across the room picked him up.
Probably a little stab.
Yeah, and then he was on the trade block that evening. But taking a look at this matchup real briefly, Talkett's Book Service is going to get the win here. Their 10th consecutive to start off the year. The current score
not a nail biter.
168 to 127. This was a nail biter through
up until
last night. And my team really pulled away.
I was about to text you when I was seeing the scores. I'm like, getting nervous. I was going,
and it was cute, and I bet
it was cute.
And what also is cute is you probably thought for a while, I'm going to get the week high this week. It was a good effort. But Talkett's Book Service is going to do it again.
What an ass.
What else is new? And real quickly, I want to talk about my defenseman. How about my top scorer for this week? Justin Falk, 25.8 fantasy points, and he is, outside of Claude Giroux, the only guy over 20.
Giroux low scores this week.
I
A lot of goaltenders.
And again, we still have some games going on here, so people have a chance to get points. But Justin Falk is a monster, and I'll tell you this. This is part of why I'm frustrated with Sam, because we had this trade in place, and I'll just be I'll be transparent about what was going on behind the scenes. I was interested in acquiring Carey Price. Obviously, we talked about it last podcast. He was out for 6 weeks or whatever the case is. I haven't gotten the update.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
Sam seemed slightly interested in making a move because he needed some points now because he was down in the standings. I was at the point where I was ready to give him Justin Falk and Roman Yossi for Carey Price, who's not going to play for the next 6 weeks. And I'm glad I didn't, because ever since we've had those talks, and he was the one that said, you know what, he's like, I appreciate the offers. I just can't pull the trigger. I can't give up my number one pick. I have to wait this out at least for a few more weeks to see where it goes. But those two guys, and I also have Keith Shattenkirk, Brody, who scored a winner last night. I mean, just loaded at D, and I'm very blessed to have guys, players like that.
The thing about Falk is he scores on basically almost every power play.
Yeah, and he's got 12 power play goals.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. He almost scores on every damn power play.
It is. The guy's unbelievable too. He's not a big guy.
No, he's not. He's a small guy.
I don't even understand how he's producing, but it's fascinating. This guy.
He's like one of those power play specialists that just kill on the power play.
Yeah,
that's a guy somebody the Penguins need.
Yes, somebody that can facilitate.
Right, a lot of teams could use.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So Talks Book Service is going to be 10-0 in all likelihood, and King of Quarter Zips will be down to 500, 5-5 on the year. Jumping over now to the Inglorious Bacchus versus Yoggers Peanut Butter. Kurt Ott versus Robbie Wright, and Kurt with an 87-68 lead, and looking like they're going to get their 6th win of the season. Robbie Wright going to be down to 3-7.
Robbie, he's going to start. Start pulling the trigger.
Yeah, all these guys under 500. At some point, you got to make a move.
You have to.
I mean, you see it happen in real life.
How much can you? How long can you go with what you have? It's not working now, and so what? So what if you do make a move and it still doesn't work out? Well, you're not doing any worse than what you're doing now. You could only be doing better.
And let me say this, because I know both of these guys are doing very well in my fantasy football league. So again, the attention's probably there, but this is the beautiful thing about fantasy hockey is that once the football season ends, and it's sadly coming to a close here shortly, this gives you something to be engaged in every single night. That's why you do it. And in the case of Robbie Wright here, you don't want the football season to end. You look at the standings, and you're 7 games below 500, and you're out of the playoffs. That's not fun. So now's the time to start making moves before it's too late.
Yeah.
Just,
3-7, it's... think what only top 4 teams make it, right?
Yeah, it's a tight league, 4 out of 10. Some people have said, why not 6? Because,
what is it going to be the NHL where 98% of the teams make the playoffs?
I mean, come on. You got to be in the top 4.
You got to earn your spot.
One interesting thing, and I'd like to get your opinion on this maybe for next season, what if the top 5 made it and the first place team got a bye?
It's kind of more like a wild card kind of situation almost. But I like it. I like it.
Like, so you would do 2 versus 5, 3 versus 4.
And then the lowest seed plays the...
Although, no, because then you have 3 teams that have won.
That's
you can't
true.
do that.
You can't do it. You got to go with even
4
number.
or 6, yeah.
Yeah.
So, definitely.
We're definitely doing 4. We're not knocking it up. We're not having a team that's
below 500.
That's 12-16 making the playoffs.
Exactly.
You don't deserve to be there.
So... Just a little talk there, but it looks like Inglorious Bacchus is going to get another win, and I believe that'll put him 3rd overall in the standings, behind you and I. So nice to see Kurt Ott having a little early success.
Good for him.
We'll jump down now to the champ. We've been talking about him, and he's going to get a win here, it looks like, over Madonna Autogol 95. Sam Mendelson with a 115-90 lead.
That's actually a big game. Both teams 4 and 5.
Yep, both teams looking for wins, and both teams, their top scorers are goalies. Jake Allen for the champ. Tuukka Rask, who's been turning it around nicely.
He had a big game versus Montreal last week. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's been very solid. Speaking of your Habs, are they slipping a little bit?
They got a win last night versus the Sens. They were slipping a bit. They blew a lead in the 3rd. Gave up 3 goals in the 3rd on Wednesday night versus the Bruins. Rask was sensational in that game.
Was that the game on national TV?
Yeah.
Oh, so the game that you texted me about. What was your quote? Let's take a look at the quote.
Hey, you know what? When you got the best team in hockey on national TV and then you got to watch the garbage you watch in Pittsburgh, I thought you'd take the opportunity to watch a real hockey team.
You said, I hope you're taking this opportunity to watch a real hockey team on NBC. And then they ended up blowing it. So that's
okay. Well, then let's look. I mean, they're still the best team in hockey, second best team now that the Dallas Stars.
I think Dallas. Dallas is really, really good.
They are really good. And Tyler Seguin is that Seguin Ben, that little tangent they got there. That might be the best in hockey.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys
talk about the two-headed monster.
Are unbelievable.
I think you got a two-headed monster there.
Safe to say.
Yeah.
Safe to say. Actually, speaking of the Dallas Stars, we usually throw a little gambling into a little gambling talk into the podcast. I made a move, and I was kicking myself. So it was Friday night. It was Flyers Stars.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been on the record here. I send bets back and forth with Jake Boss. $20. So I put $20 in on the Stars over in that game, over 5.5. So I was rooting for 6 goals. Okay. I get another bet comes in from another one of my buddies, and he bets a little bit bigger, and I send it off to another buddy. So a lot of moving parts here. He sends in, I'll take $100 on Dallas over Philly. Okay, and I'm at the Pens game. I read that real quick, and I thought that the incoming bet said he wanted the over in the game.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, okay, I already have that in.
Yeah.
Jake and I don't do bets that big, so I'll send it off to this other guy. So I send the over off.
Yeah.
Okay?
But he just meant, like, win.
Yeah, he meant Dallas win.
Yeah.
So I wake up the next morning, sending everybody's, like, totals. I'll let them know, like, where everybody stands.
Yeah.
And I get a text back from the one kid, and he said, didn't Dallas win last night? And I'm thinking, what's this kid talking about?
Yeah.
So they did win. They beat the Flyers, but the final was 3-1. So they won, and the game went under. So now, since I messed up, I owe this kid $100. I owe Jake $20 since the game stayed under, and the other $100 that I sent off to this other kid, thinking that it was the over bet.
Yeah.
I have to pay that now too.
You're gonna have to have some cash.
It was a big mishap. One that it's hard to forgive yourself for a move like that. And not a good way to start off your day too, because I do all this in the morning. I was like, oh, this is just great. Not to mention, I also took the under in the Pens game, which ended up being a push thanks to that late goal by Malkin, or else if he doesn't score, I win that there, and the Pens inevitably went on to lose, so it didn't really matter anyway.
What night was that
Friday night.
Oh, against
the Kings. So I was down at the game.
Okay, yeah.
I was down at the game. I didn't like the Pens, but I kind of saw a low-scoring game with Quick and Fleury, and the first game didn't go that way, so I thought the second game would come back to the norm a little bit. It's sitting there 2-1 with a minute left, and I'm like, okay, I got this. Just needed to stay under five goals. Malkin scores 2-2. There's going to be a guaranteed fifth goal.
Yeah.
So it ends up being a push. So it wasn't a great.
That kind of stinks that the fifth goal's like a shootout.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not really a goal.
No.
It's just like you have to like put one up there to say they won.
Exactly. So just a tough stretch there for me. But we always like to throw the little gambling twist in the podcast.
It's the risk you got to take when you're in the business.
It's fine. $20 here, $20 there, and keeps you engaged and having some fun.
Like I said, sometimes I haven't done it much this year, but last year, if I had nothing to do, I know, and then and I did get so hot. There's been times where I've been really hot, and there's times where I've been really bad. But it's fun though. It's like you have nothing to do, and like throw a little cash on a meaningless hockey game. You know what I mean?
10 or 20. Yeah, just 10 or
20 bucks. I never did anything ridiculous.
No.
But it gives you like a game where it just gets you something to do.
Yes. Some bad news here is that my computer's on about 9% battery, or 9 minutes left. It says
we got a goal update.
Tavares from Okposo, a little connection for Talking's Book Service there.
Who you have on your line? I mean, who's on your team for that?
Tavares and Okposo.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So just we'll take a few more points there on our way to our another week high. Real quickly, we're going to jump into the final matchup. This is maybe the only one that has a chance to turn, given that the Shaw Panthers never set their lineup, though. I don't think it's going to happen. The Drunken Pucks with a 73-61 lead over the Shaw Panthers.
8 points.
Assuming Griffin Bergman wins this hockey game, he will be up to 6-4. Fawcett down to 0-10. So the roommates will remain at 500.
That's sad when you got a 10-0 team. You got 500. That's sad.
It is. And, I thought we held our household here to a higher standard. Apparently I was wrong.
Apparently not.
But this was the same way when I was living back at home with Ben last year. So, it's all kind of You know,
At least
seems to follow me
that
around.
team won a couple games.
They did win a couple, and you wonder if a couple wins are in store for Fawcett at some point this year.
You got to think one odd week he's going to pull one off.
Yeah, out of 23, there's a lot of good teams. There's a lot of good
Yeah,
teams
there is. This is a competitive league.
It is.
I'll give it that.
I'm certainly having fun with it.
It is fun.
Any concluding thoughts from you? Because we are a little pressed for time with the battery dying here.
Any final thoughts on this past week's matchup, or just overall?
Just overall, NHL, any other thing you want to touch on briefly?
I don't know. I don't have.
Not much else?
I mean,
well, let me say this. Real quickly, give me some NFL thoughts, because, again, since Austin has left, I've been left with no co-host, no anchor for the football podcast, and I know about half of this league, maybe even more as I look down, are in my fantasy football league. They're craving a little bit of fantasy football podcast talk. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to bring it to him. I'm going to try to get Fawcett to do it for this upcoming week since it's playoffs. But
how's he doing in that league? Has he won more than 0 games?
He's won more, but he missed the playoffs, as did I. So not a lot of advice for us to give there. But your thoughts in general, NFL. You had mentioned that your fantasy team is.
Yeah, we pulled off pulled off a couple wins in a row. I was out of the playoff picture by a couple games. And then the past couple weeks, I've won 2 in a row, and then I had teams that had to lose a couple in a row. Did so, and before I left, I was up by about 40 points.
Wow.
Yeah, well, huge decision by me. I had Andy Dalton starting up to about 11:30 this morning.
Little tinker.
I said, Dalton versus Pittsburgh, don't feel too hot about it. And I saw Breeze was going up against Tampa, and went there, and thank God I did that.
Yeah, big difference overall for you.
Yeah. And it looks like I have Denver's defense, so.
Who's currently cramping up on the middle of the field.
Yeah, that's not good.
Your Super Bowl pick this year, who do you like? Who's standing out? I'll tell you, for me, the one team that looks really strong, and they did kind of eke out a win this past week, but the Arizona Cardinals are looking to me like the most complete team in football. Patriots have some injuries. I think Denver looks good, but I don't think Osweiler's the guy unless it's rigged for Peyton. I don't see them doing anything.
Which it could be. There's a possibility.
Yeah, I absolutely think there's a possibility. They could be the front runners for the rig.
Yeah.
We're watching the Packers as we speak, another team that a lot of people thought were going to be in Super Bowl contention. They haven't looked as strong the past couple of weeks, but
currently up 14-0 against the lowly Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of teams out there. For me, the Arizona Cardinals, and you have to mention in this, in the same breath, the Carolina Panthers, 13-0.
When you're 13-0, you can't.
I cannot believe that team's 13-0. You look up and down the roster. You look at the wide receivers, notably. You wonder how this team just keeps getting it done, and they blew out the Atlanta Falcons today, 38-0.
Yeah, that was not a nail biter by any means.
So I guess it's almost offensive that I didn't initially.
Yeah, I mean they don't have. I mean, obviously they got a couple guys that stand out. Cam Newton, Stewart, the running back.
Your boy.
Yeah, I had him today. He got me some fantasy points. But Carolina Panthers. When you say the Carolina Panthers 13-0, doesn't come to mind too much.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that they've kind of have come this far. The Pittsburgh Steelers maybe a little bit in the conversation.
Yeah, they've been. You can't say enough about that offense. They said this is a 5th straight game with them having at least 30 points.
Yeah, and they've been really, really good. So
it's just if the defense stays a little above par.
I would agree with that. Yes.
They don't
have to be world beaters.
No, they don't have to be the Still Kerr.
Just keep them in games and give the offense a chance.
Let them do what they gotta do. And D'Angelo Williams. He's been a nice little player for them.
Nice. I mean, he's arguably better than Bell.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, not long term.
Yeah, but right now.
But he's been awesome. He's been awesome. I mean, he hasn't missed a beat with Bell out.
Yeah.
So coming down the stretch, NFL is going to be a lot of fun to see kind of how this all unfolds.
There's a lot of not a lot of certainty what's going to happen. So a lot of teams that are on the fence that could go either way. Just mentioning a couple teams right now. The Seahawks seem like they're back to the way they've been playing the past couple years.
Yeah, they've been very strong.
A lot of surprise that the Minnesota Vikings. They have a nice team. They lost today, I see, with the Cardinals, but they've been a good surprise to see too.
Absolutely. So a lot of teams in the mix. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Again, to those of you in the Fantasy Football League, I apologize. I know that all you guys want to hear right now is football, and maybe you're not as concerned with hockey over these last few weeks. I'm gonna do everything I can to get Fawcett or somebody else. We always talk about.
I'm not your guy for the football. I'm not.
No, It was nice to get your thoughts.
Yeah, but I'm not an in-depth. I'm not. What's his name? John Gruden, or by any means.
Well, I don't think any of us are in that. You'd take one look at my record, and
that was a good pass,
and you would you'd understand that. Not been a good fantasy football year for me. But we say every week that we're going to try to figure out how to Skype people in. I'm going to actually put you in charge of this.
Me? I'm not. I'm smart. I didn't even know how to freaking press this to open up something on a laptop, and you want me to get somebody from halfway across the country in on Skype.
And we're going to work on it because that would be beneficial.
I don't even have an iPhone.
All right, I'm going to do my best to keep this under an hour. We have 8 seconds. Thank you for joining us here on the Week 10 Intent to Injure podcast.
We'll see you. We'll see you next week, and for